I changed up the boutique a little bit. I'm not happy with it, but we'll do like a girlier one for the next time. Donk, 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 donk. The pictures that Sarah took of me last week turned out pretty well. They even got a lot of traction on social media and boosted my sales somewhat. Not by any substantial amount, but enough to see a difference. Sarah has had to deal with me ranting about a certain jerk with no manners these past couple of days. He was simply so rude to me that day, it still leaves me fuming. Of course, Sarah offered to beat him up for me again, and this time I almost took her up on her offer, but I'd rather not give him more fuel to blackmail me. I'd do almost anything to see him get knocked down a peg or two. Also, I didn't know where Neil lived or worked for a while until Sarah reminded me of his last name. Forrester. The Forresters own the hospital, so I guess Neil must work there if I always seem to run into him in the surrounding area. Nonetheless, realizing where he works doesn't matter much to my current predicament because today is Friday. Yep, Neil is supposed to be coming over for his measurements, and I'm not looking forward to this one bit. Is he going to be snappy towards me again and insult me like last time? I really don't want to find out. Oh no. The bell jingle disturbs me from my thoughts, and I look up at the entrance. It's just another customer. I sigh. I help the customer buy a dress, and once more I'm left alone in the store. It's a slow day. My eyes dart over towards my childhood pictures, and I recall the time when I met Neil when he was just a little boy. He seemed so sweet and scared back then, nothing like what he is right now. Now he's just a spoiled, rich brat who doesn't know how to exercise common decency. I huff. A feeling of dread wells up in my stomach the longer the hours tick by. It's closing time, and I've already put up the close sign, and Neil hasn't shown up. Even if I wanted to berate him for being late, there's no way to contact him. It's not like I have his phone number. I'm not even sure I want his phone number. Of course, he has the nerve to show up right as I'm closing. You're late, I say. Neil fixes the cuffs of his sleeves and walks over to the counter, a habit he seems to keep repeating. I don't remember agreeing on an appointed time slot for today. I'm not in the mood for this, as it clearly shows on my face. Neil simply exhales loudly. Let's just get this started. I gesture towards the back where my sewing room is located. The sooner I can get this over with, the sooner I have Neil out of my hair. We both walk in this awkward silence, and once I shut the door behind me, it's just me and Neil in this tiny cramped sewing room. Honestly, what have I gotten myself into? Neil stands in the middle, surveying everything with a critical eye, and I wish I had taken the time to clean up and organize everything before he could judge me for being messy. I walk towards my crafting table and pick up my sketchbook along with a pencil. First things first, get a design he likes. Alright, can you tell me a little bit about the kind of blazer you'd like? I say in a bored voice. Elegant, simple, streamlined, and the most expensive and durable fabric, dark grey, and in other words, perfection. Neil gives me a firm nod. My pencil hits the sketchbook. I'm not really going to pay any mind to the most expensive fabric part, nor the perfection part, but at least I've got something to work with. I quickly sketch out a regular blazer, one of the most popular patterns. Neil waggles his finger at me. No, do you think I'd be okay with commonly store-bought blazers? No, try harder. It needs more finesse. I'm so sorry that this design isn't up to your standards, Your Majesty, I say sarcastically. What does a royal king like you think is adequate enough? I point the pencil at him. Neil gives me an annoyed look, not liking the fact I'm mocking his stupid demands. Perhaps I'm asking too much of a simple tailor such as yourself, says Neil. I guess I need to lower my standards and ask for a design that doesn't require much skill. His words sting as they usually do, and I'm immediately defensive. No, I can do it, I say curtly. I'll try again. I'm annoyed by him and everything he says, the way he undermines my skill and thinks he's some kind of big shot around town as if he owns the place. Well, he's in my territory now. I'll show him. I'll make a blazer that will make him gape in awe. Newly determined, I get back to sketching out several blazer designs. I try to put an elegant twist to it, hoping to satisfy his outrageous demands. When I finish a few, I show it to Neil, turning the sketchbook towards him. It's almost as if I'm waiting for his approval or praise, and that kind of bugs me. His golden eyes glaze over the paper, inspecting the designs. He's got an interested look on his face as he leans closer over the table. If you could... Neil then tries to go for the pencil in my hand. His fingers brush over mine and he immediately jerks back, knocking the pencil out of my hand. It lands on the floor with a dull thud. He quickly bends down to grab it without another word. I wonder what that was about. Is touching me so below him or something? I stare him down when he gets back up with the pencil. He tries to pass off like nothing has happened and then makes a few adjustments on some of my sketches, albeit in a very childish way. Do it like this? Neil places down the pencil. There are weird doodles all over my original sketch. You're definitely the next Picasso, I say sarcastically. I wouldn't have to be if you got it right the first time, Neil fires back, crossing his arms. Now, something like this is to my tastes. I'm going to presume you don't have much high-quality fabrics lying around here, so I want to sample the fabric before you purchase it. Do you want me to send it over to you with priority? Yes, I'd like that. I was joking. I didn't know you could joke. Neil and I stare at each other for a while, the tension building up between us. He's got this poker face on and it's hard to guess what's going on in his mind. Then again, maybe it's not hard to guess. All I know is that Neil sure likes to mock me and command me around. We'll worry about the fabric later, I just need to get you measurements first. This is the part I've been personally anguishing at night about, getting up close and personal with Neil. Very well, take my measurements. Neil clasps his hands together. He walks to the middle of the room, expecting me to start. I vaguely remember this. He's acting like he's in charge, and that's ticking me off just a tiny bit. This is my boutique. He'll have to do what I tell him, not the other way around. I could tell him to take his shirt off, for example. Not that I need to. I can take his measurements through his shirt just fine, but it's for science. Imagine being kind. Like, that's so boring. You need to have this, like, banter, you know? I give him a wry smile. You need to take your shirt off. He frowns at me, lips pursing out as if he's about to object. Do you want my measurements to be off? I say before he gets a chance to protest. Fine, he says gruffly. Neil slowly starts to take off his tie, but stops when he notices I'm watching him. Mind giving me some privacy? I gesture at him with a shrug. I'll be seeing it regardless. Come on, don't be shy. That's so rude. Everyone's got a little bit of chub. I do not have a little bit of chub, he fires back. I roll my eyes at him. Strip. Neil clicks his tongue at me, but he's surprisingly obedient when he starts to take off his shirt. He neatly folds it and places it down on my work table. Awkwardly, he stands in the middle of the room and scratches the side of his neck. He feels out of place. I grin. Good. I take out my measuring tape and I step closer to him. His eyes are following my every move. It's unnerving. Turn around, I say. When he actually does turn around, I'm quite surprised. I expected him to reply with some witty comeback. I shake my head at myself and then place my tape against the nape of his neck, and Neil flinches at my touch. I frown at his back. Did I accidentally scratch you? I ask him, unsure. No, it's nothing. Continue. If I make you uncomfortable, let me know. I said it's nothing, he repeats himself. Alright, if he says so. I pull the tape all the way down and note the measurements. Arms up, I say, tapping his arm with my hand. Again, he flinches away from me, but doesn't make a sound or say anything. It's so peculiar. Perhaps he isn't quite used to someone touching him while being measured. He raises his arms and stretches them out so that I can reach all the way around him and wrap the tape around his neck. I tighten it and press the palm of my hand against his back. He arches his back the more pressure I exert, almost as if I'm slightly pushing him away. Maybe I should try and relax him as he seems on edge around me. So, do you work at the hospital? I ask, trying to distract myself from the awkward silence. Neil rolls his shoulders after I pull the tape off of him. Why would you need to know that information? I glare at his back while I note down the measurements again. Well, fine, don't tell me, Mr. Fancy Pants. Turn around, please. I grab his upper arm, noticing his skin jump when I do, and spin him around so he faces me. Neil's making this weird face and refuses to look at me. My family owns it. That's all I'll say about the matter. So what's this blazer for anyway? Any special occasion? I ask, only slightly interested in the answer. You ask too many questions. And you don't answer enough, I say with a huff. If I know what the occasion is for, then I can create a fitting design for it. Dinner. Family dinner, he says gruffly. With your parents? Yes. Ah, so he's having dinner with his parents. His parents are the foresters, they own the hospital. I do wonder what Neil does at the hospital, but getting an answer out of him is like pulling teeth. I lower my body and tighten the tape around his waist, my eyes focused on the numbers. I try to take his measurements of his waist, but that's when I notice how tense Neil is. He's sucking in his stomach. Stop sucking in your stomach. I don't care if you've got a bit of a gut. I need your real measurements, I tell him sternly. This is not going to work out if I get the wrong numbers. Not that I particularly care if he wears a blazer that's too tight on him. I'm doing no such thing, Neil denies. My body is perfectly healthy for your information. I straighten up and look at him, to which he immediately turns his head away. You're tense. Just relax. How can one relax when being prodded and poked and spun around like a ballerina? He can't relax around me. For some reason, this makes me gleeful, like I finally have the upper hand after he's been such a jerk to me. Just breathe out and let me measure your waist. Neil takes a big breath and slowly exhales. His reactions are giving me this itch, like I want to touch him more. I tighten the tape around him and take a step closer, putting myself up close and personal with him. I've been trying to avoid getting too close to Neil this whole time, but that was before I knew how much he'd fidget if I'd be up in his face. Neil awkwardly turns his face away with a cough. Are you okay? I ask him, a light smirk playing on my lips. Like I said before, I can stop if you're becoming uncomfortable. I'm fine. His voice cracks a little. Well, if he says it's alright, I'm sure he doesn't mind if I slow down my actions to drag it out as much as possible. It's like he's revealed his weakness to me and I can't help but want to prod and poke him. I want to tease him. I linger with my touch here and there, though still noting down actual measurements. He's fidgeting, but for some reason he's not telling me to stop. My eyes wander over towards his neck. I can see he's got goosebumps. Wait, that's not the kind of reaction I was expecting. Is he nervous? Neil notices my staring and quickly covers his neck with his hand. Are you sure you even went to fashion school? You should have been done by now. You're only taking the measurements of a human, not the whole wide world. Neil's voice has a slight edge to it. Alright, time to wrap this up. I measure his inseam one last time and then give him a pat on his back. Done, I say cheerfully. I didn't expect Neil to jump away from me in reaction to the pat on his arm. I barely have time to register that his feet get caught in my tape and he topples over. Neil reaches out to me to stabilize himself. His weight is too much for me to suddenly bear, and he brings the both of us down to the floor with a loud thump. Oh, are we getting a CG? Oh, we are. A ruh-roh. Neil's head crashes against the mirror behind him and I collapse on top of him. I look at him in surprise. He gives me a similar look in return. I seem to be straddling his waist and I'm way too close to his face. Neil's heartbeat thumps under my hand. Are you alright? I decide to ask once the shock wears off. Peachy, says Neil, his voice definitely cracking this time. He turns his head away from my gaze. Could you get off me now? What's the rush? Seriously? Neil looks at me as if I've lost my mind. How about the fact that your weight is killing my air supply? Fucking rude. I shift my weight around. Say please. This is fun. Neil looks agitated and embarrassed at the same time, like he can't bring himself to say the words, but knowing he kind of has to, since he doesn't have it in him to throw me off of him. In other words, he's stuck with me unless he says the magic word. Neil bites his lips. Please, he says in a tiny and defeated voice. I pick myself up with a smirk on my face. It's like I had Neil right under my thumb, or I guess in this situation, literally under me. Once I've removed myself from him, Neil quickly gets up from the floor as well. Neil dashes over towards my work table and picks up his shirt. Within a second, he's got everything back on. I guess he doesn't want to be shirtless around me any longer than he has to. For some reason, I don't have much faith in your measurements. I could tell you had to measure some parts again. He rubs his arm while glaring at me. I smile at him, knowing exactly why I went over some areas twice. We'll just have to find out now, won't we? If you got the wrong measurements, I'll demand you create me an entire new suit. Right, sure, whatever you say, Majesty. I roll my eyes at him, like I would ever make him a suit. And don't call me that, he spits out. Oh, seems I got under his skin. This is kind of fun, annoying him like this. Your Majesty? I say instead. Neil angrily stomps his foot on the ground like a petulant child. Any of those are unacceptable. He then quickly composes himself. You may call me... Yeah, I'm sticking with your Majesty, I say, quickly cutting him off. And before he can get another word in, I circle around him and start pushing him by shoving my hands against his back. I get a small rush of satisfaction when I feel his skin twitch under my fingers. Get your hands off me. Time to leave now. I'll let you know which fabric I've chosen, but right now it's closing time, so get out. I keep pushing him out of my room until one final shove puts him near the entrance of the store. He turns around, anger flashing in his face, and his ears are tinted with red. He wants to say something, but then immediately bites down on his lips and then opens the door to leave. Good night, he yells out, then slams the door behind me. As I stand there all alone, a grin creeps up on my face. I got under Neil's skin. Good. He deserves it for treating me like that. Hell yeah. That was a long chapter. Continue. It's so loud. The shipment of fabric swatches for Neil's blazer came in the mail today. As I stand there holding fabric swatches in my hand, wondering what I should pick for Neil's blazer, I realise I don't have any way of contacting him. So far I've only run into him by chance, or he came over to my place himself. This time we didn't set another appointment, so I can't really show him these swatches. What a pain, now I have to actually go out and find him. I'm pretty sure he'd raise a huge stink over selecting fabric without consulting him. How annoying. I guess I should start looking at the hospital, ask around for him, see if he's there. Maybe I'll get lucky. With that in mind, I grab the swatches, place the closed sign at my door, and lock up shop. There it is, Kleiner Medical Center, the one Neil seems to work at. The entrance seems a little daunting, considering I really have no business at the hospital. Still, I do need to find the man before he continues to stalk my store windows again. I gather my courage and step inside the hospital. It's the first time I've been here, and I'm greeted by a white lobby with very tall ceilings. The hospital seems fairly calm, only a few people seem to be going in and leaving. No sign of a certain man with purple hair. I wonder what position Neil has at the hospital. Surely he can't be a doctor. I refuse to believe someone as petty and mean as him could ever be allowed to be a doctor. Oh, you'd be surprised. Awkwardly, I make my way over to the receptionist, who's in the middle of helping someone else, so I patiently wait in line. When it's my turn, the receptionist beckons me over. How may I help you today? Yes, I'm looking for a Neil Forrester. Is he here by any chance? Maybe they won't even tell me if he's here or not, or perhaps not even be allowed to, but it's worth a shot. Mr. Forrester is currently present, but he's busy in a meeting. Would you like for me to leave a message behind? Hearing him be referred to as Mr. Forrester kind of creeps me out. It doesn't suit him. Yes, could you tell him Valkii Hearth? And that's when I notice it, Neil's voice. I turn my head and see a group of businessmen walking out of the elevator. Among them is Neil. Actually, never mind, I say, removing myself away from the counter. I find myself quickly taking a seat near the window so that I can inconspicuously look at Neil, who's decided to wait in the lobby with the other men and argue about something seemingly important. Who's stalking now? I'm not sure what they're talking about. I can't understand what they're saying from here. He looks more dressed up than normal. His hair seems to be tidier. It almost looks like he's a competent adult who doesn't have this nasty habit of running his foul mouth all the time. I'm intrigued and grossed out at the same time. The men continue to discuss amongst themselves until one by one they start to leave, with their briefcases in hand. The last one shakes Neil's hand and leaves as well. There's a really smug smile on Neil's face as he fixes his tie. I roll my eyes. He's probably so full of himself for closing some kind of deal right now. Maybe I should leave now before he notices me and starts to brag about it. So I stand up from the chair, ready to escape.
Oh.
Your hair looks so bad like that. Valkii. I cringe. Too late. I can't sneak off anymore. Well, I came here for a reason, so I might as well get it over with. Neil. I put on a fake smile and approach him. Neil runs a hand through his styled hair. He looks less smug now. In fact, he's a bit sheepish. Caught off guard, perhaps? Or perhaps he's remembering our last encounter where I fell on top of him. That event still leaves me feeling a little awkward. You like to spy on my meetings? That implies you were actually saying something worthwhile that needed spying on, I retort. Neil waves his hand at me, dismissing what I said. Or perhaps you were captivated by my magnificent negotiating techniques and couldn't help but stop and stare in awe, says Neil cheerfully, nodding at himself like this was the actual truth. Okay, I guess the awkward Neil from before has disappeared entirely because he went right back to the arrogant one. What does he want, a cookie? You're gross. I take it you close some kind of important business deal? I say in a dull voice. Yep, Neil is definitely not the mature adult I thought he was only minutes ago. Neil looks at me with a knowing smirk but doesn't reply. That actually kind of gets on my nerves. He won't even tell me what he's so gleeful about. That's just annoying. Whatever, I'm here for your blazer. I didn't have any way of contacting you, so I came here. Neil stretches out his hand, palm side up. Hand over your phone, he commands. I frown at him. Excuse me. He beckons at me with his hand, waiting for me to give him my phone. I'm not giving you my phone, I say, eyeing him suspiciously. Neil sighs. Do you want to be able to contact me? No, I don't. But I kind of have to, so I nod. Yes. Then add me to your contacts. I pull out my phone from my purse and Neil immediately snorts. Well, that's an ancient fossil I haven't seen in a while. He's referring to my flip cell phone. I hold it close to my chest and glare at him. Some of us don't get free stuff from our parents, I say back. Neil returns my glare, then starts to recite his phone number, which I quickly note down. I save the number under the contact His Majesty with a smirk. Now you won't have to come and spy on me at my work, he says arrogantly. Like I wanted to spy on him. Look, I only wanted your opinion on these fabric swatches. I've got them with me, so hurry up and decide which one you want so I can finish your garment. I open my bag and show him the small sample of swatches I have with me. It's mostly just a lot of different variations of grey. Neil takes it and studies each sample with a pensive look. Now that he's all concentrated and stopped running off his mouth, he actually looks really mature again. I wonder how old Neil is. He seems to be in his mid-20s, I think, although when he's in this get-up and looking serious, he looks like he's 30. Didn't he tell you he's 8, so that means he's 1 year older than you, so that means we're like, I don't remember how long ago it was, so I don't know. He's 24, 25, right? So that means we're like 23, 24. I feel myself starting to be impressed by his looks, not having seen him this mature before. After a while, Neil notices I've been staring at him and he looks up from the swatches. Quickly, I avert my eyes, a bit embarrassed he caught me staring. Is this all you have? He says with an annoyed huff. All of the most expensive dark grey fabrics available to me, yes. Perhaps expensive is only relative to you. These don't feel at all that expensive to me. I frown at him. Must he always criticize everything? Well, if it's not to your taste, then... I try to grab the swatches back from him. Neil pulls it out of my reach with a little shake of his head. He then pulls out one of the samples, a shady dark grey with a thick texture, and holds it up in front of my face. This one will do. Surprised that he's actually agreeing on one of the samples leaves me a bit stumped for words. I mutter, great. Now I can finish this blazer. Neil places a hand on his hip and hands me back over the swatches. Anything else you need? He asks. Yeah, how old are you? Kind of flies right out of my mouth, and even Neil looks surprised at my question. I bite my lips hard and suddenly feel all flustered for voicing my thoughts. I didn't really want to say this out loud. Neil composes himself and simply gives a small huff. Regardless whether or not this information is relevant to the creation of a certain garment, I have to ask, is your memory broken? I simply blink at him, wondering what he's going on about. My memory? Seeing my confused face, he sighs. You really don't remember? You asked me before when we were kids, he says in a soft voice. Oh right, memories. Suddenly I remember back when we were kids I had asked him for his age and he had said 8, which was a year older than me. That means present day, Neil must be 24 years old. I look down with my hands in my lap, red-faced. Oh, is all I can say. No, I guess I forgot until now. I'm surprised you still remember though. I don't forget things that are important to me. Neil fixes his tie. My eyes widen in surprise. Is he saying the memories he has of me are important? Am I important? That means I won't forget about my watch. Ugh, of course it was about their watch. Is that everything you came to see me for? I'm quite busy. Yes, don't let me keep you from going to meetings, or whatever he does at the hospital. Have a nice day, Valkii. Same. For once, an actual civilized conversation has taken place between us, and I am almost bothered by it. I finally head home. Back at the store, I rack my brain trying to think of what I need to do still to get this blazer finished. It shouldn't take long now. I think I can get it fitted by the end of the week. So I decide to text Neil. Are you free on Saturday this week? It doesn't take long before I get an answer back. I have plans, but I can squeeze you in. Will you have finished the garment by then? It should be ready by then, so please reserve an hour from your time that day. Speaking of reservations, are you going to be busy next month? I'm wondering why Neil would ask me this. Maybe he's scheming something. It'll be October next month. I don't have anything planned yet. After that, Neil stops texting me, and I'm left to wonder what he meant with that question. Oh well, it's just Neil. Time to work on this blazer and get rid of him. The blazer is all but done now after pulling a few all-nighters this week. I've been texting back and forth with Neil. He's as insufferable in text as he is in person, and we decided on a date where he can come fit the blazer. I guess the most fart pun out of this whole arrangement was when I woke him up with a text of mine asking him to remeasure his arm length at 2 AM in the morning. He belittled me as expected, but actually gave me the measurements. Haha, the sucker. I didn't really need those measurements. I just wanted to wake him up at an ungodly hour so he could suffer with me, considering I've been staying up this late for a few days in a row. Misery loves company after all. So here I am, anxiously waiting for Neil to drop by after working hours. Finally, I get to be done with this guy. The bell rings and the door opens. Neil walks in, looking quite posh and self-assured. There's always this overconfident aura around him. Good evening, he greets me. I nod my head at him. Come with me to the back. I lead him to the sewing room so that I can fit and make any small adjustments to the blazer. Neil follows me quietly, but I can feel his eyes burn a hole in my back. It's uncomfortable. Speaking of uncomfortable, I wonder if he'll react the same way again like last time whenever I touched him, jerking away from me as if I'm something disgusting. I mentally shake my head. He's a weird one, but after today, it should all be over. I quickly grab the blazer that's prepped and hanging on the wall, then hand it over to Neil. I think you actually have to make this in the one where you have to do the requirements to go to the chapter. In a deliberately slow move, Neil takes it over and inspects it with a hawk eye. He slides the fabric through his fingers, looks at the lining and the craftsmanship, and I start to feel pretty nervous about it all. To be honest, I'm preparing myself for his harsh words and criticism because I know that's exactly what he'll say. However, Neil doesn't say a word and he slides his arms into the sleeves and puts the blazer on. He turns to face the mirror and check himself out, twisting his body from side to side to examine every angle. He looks quite dapper in the blazer. It suits him, but I can already see a few alterations I need to make. It's a bit too wide at the waist. I know it's Neil and all, and I shouldn't slave away for a guy like him, but it's against my principles to create a sloppy garment. So, I ask him, impatient for his reaction. Neil sighs and closes his eyes for a bit. It's not anything remarkable, and it's too wide at my waist. My cheeks are already glowing pink, and I can't help but glare at him, even though he's right about that last part. What a thankless man. But it's passable, decent enough to wear. Just a few small adjustments and people might actually compliment me for wearing it. I blinked at Neil. Was that a compliment? I stare at him in shock, at a loss of words. Neil notices me staring at him and he gives me an indignant huff. Well, are you going to continue to stand there and stare at me in awe, or are you going to fix your mistakes? He sneers at me. He quickly takes the blazer off and hands it over to me. Quit your whining, I'm doing this for free, I snap at him. I take the blazer and hop on over towards my sewing machine and start to narrow the waistline. It should be a quick... Oh, so loud. It should be a quick adjustment so it doesn't take long before I'm finished. The sound of the sewing machine's needles plucking down fills the room and Neil is tapping his foot on the ground impatiently. Once I'm finished, I hand it over to him and he tries it on once more. Neil looks at himself in the mirror. The fit is a lot better now. Alright, this seems adequate enough, he says. I sigh in relief. I'm finished. Neil awkwardly fiddles around with the cuffs of his blazer as if he doesn't know what to say at that moment, but then he finally does speak up. Someone might actually want to try and find out who the tailor is. At least its quality shouldn't put me to shame. I look at him weirdly. Is this another compliment? I can't tell for sure. It's so awkwardly worded. Are you so worried about what people might think of you? I ask. Neil raises an eyebrow at me in the mirror, then shakes his head. I don't waste time worrying on inconsequential issues like that. Your actions say otherwise, though, I say softly with a roll of my eyes. Neil definitely cares about what people think of him. Just look at how much he cares what a blazer should look like. Neil turns around to face me. No one has the time to be worrying about what the world thinks of them. They only really care about what a select few people have to say, says Neil in a low and serious voice. I'm a bit taken aback by his response, as it sounds mature and well thought out, and I hadn't expected that to come out of the mouth of Neil of all people. It actually makes me curious if he had someone in mind when he said that. So I look at him with curious eyes. I wonder who those people are. Does Neil even have anyone he cares about? Does that mean you have a select few people whose opinion of you matters? Neil's cheek flushed a little with pink, but he turns his back on me to continue inspecting himself in the mirror. He doesn't say anything. As Neil is still checking himself out in the mirror, he speaks up. You know, I'll be at a party next month. People will be wearing the most beautiful costumes from around the world. I'm sure even someone like you could learn something from seeing them. I bite on my lip and frown at him for changing the subject. What is he getting at here? And why are you telling me? I figured you'd be interested in a masquerade ball, what with you playing dress-up all the time. Neil shrugs nonchalantly as he finally steps away from the mirror. I make clothes, I don't play. I stress the words, feeling insulted. He hand waves what I said. Same thing. Then he leans down with his elbow on my crafting table. Are you interested? Interested in what? I roll my eyes at him. You don't have to act coy. I know even someone like you would love to be invited to a ball, no matter how low of a status they have. My nostrils flare up in anger. Listen here, Neil. Under no circumstance am I interested. So I've got an invitation right here. Neil completely talks over me and he takes something out of his back pocket. It's a cream-covered envelope. He shifts it between his fingers, looking smug and full of himself like always. Even you would be grateful to be invited to such a high-profile event. You could create your own costume and show off your work. Neil smiles at himself. You should be thanking me for even thinking about giving you an invitation. How dare he talk about me like that? I take the envelope out of his hand and slam it on the counter. Who says I even want to attend? Don't just go ahead and make decisions for me. Neil looks taken aback, but then he shakes his head a little and his arrogant face is back to normal. And there's a lot of people, celebrities even, who show off their various designer costumes. I think it would be wise to accept this invitation if you want to make a name for yourself as a tailor there. It's an opportunity for you to create some connections. He's got a point. If it's anything like he describes, people would be flaunting their costumes, and perhaps I can make a name for myself and snatch some celebrity as a client. But I don't really want to admit this to Neil, my pride won't allow it. My eyes are focused on the envelope. I'm conflicted about it. I thought I was going to stop seeing Neil around any longer, but now he's waving this invitation around in my face that could definitely be good for business. I really don't know what to do. And what do you want in return? I finally ask. There's gotta be a catch. No way Neil would offer me this for free. There's a sly smile on Neil's lips. I might give it to you if you beg, he says gleefully. I refuse, I say immediately. Neil frowns, then takes the envelope from the counter and tucks it back into his pocket. Very well then, I see this invitation is not wanted. I will enjoy going there by myself, showing off the best costume at the party, and feeling comfortable knowing you wouldn't be there to spill wine all over my outfit. My cheeks sting a little bit. I wouldn't. I guess I overstayed my welcome here. I thank you for this blazer. It's not much, definitely not worth the price in return for my watch, but it will do. Enjoy your evening, Valkii. Neil fixes the blazer by the collar, then walks out of my sewing room. I'm left there feeling frustrated. Finally, I thought I was rid of Neil, but then he dangles this shiny prize in front of me, asking me to beg for it. No way. I've still got my pride. Neil can go ahead and visit that ball all by himself. I'm not attending. I start to clean up my workplace, and a little while later, my phone buzzes. I stop working and look at the phone. I've gotten a text message from His Majesty. Check your mail. Curious what he means, I quickly check out my email, and there's nothing new. I'm confused, so I write back. Mail, there's nothing in my inbox. You can't be this daft to realize I meant your actual mailbox outside of your store. My cheeks flush in embarrassment. Well, who does that anymore? Like, who sends that? Like, you could just send the email. Quickly, I go to the front of my store and check out the mailbox. I can feel my heart skip a beat as I open the mailbox. There's a cream envelope inside. It's the invitation. I quickly open it and read it, unable to contain my curiosity. So, you are invited to the annual Foresters Masquerade Ball. Wear a mask so no one can tell your true identity. Hide it well. There's an address to the venue on the back. I'm frowning at the invitation. Neil wanted to give it to me no matter what I said, and I wonder why. Why does he want me at the party? I can't imagine it's because he thinks we're friends or even anything remotely close to friendly with each other. But then why? Why invite me? It's because he wants to show off his own costume. I'm pretty sure he's got his own tailor that's making a costume for it, and perhaps he wants to rub it in my face that his is so much better than mine. Well, just you wait, Neil. I'll make a costume that'll dazzle you. Yeah. Alright, I will see you in the next one.